These are the voices that make Missouri work. This is Profiles from the Heartlander. Well, Representative Richey, welcome to the Heartlander.
Well, it's great to be here, Chris.
Glad to have you. I just read a post on X from you a couple of days ago, and it said, "We've seen tremendous work accomplished over the last 7 days. Missouri parents scored a big win for educational choice and freedom. Missouri's unborn scored a big win for life. Missouri's citizens scored a win, putting them one step closer to protecting our state's Constitution." Let's talk about that. You're proud of the agenda that's been accomplished in the legislature.
Absolutely. I mean, this last week really has been consequential. I mean, we were able to see education choice and freedom expanded with the ESA program now being able to be accessible to families statewide, as opposed to, a few areas that kind of pepper the landscape of Missouri. Now, no matter where you live, no matter what your zip code is, you could actually have an opportunity to apply for these scholarships, which is a significant win for parents. We've been hearing from so many that are frustrated with the subpar outcomes that we're seeing in public education. And then on top of that, all the woke nonsense that's taking place as well within schools. So you have parents that are being driven to look for other options, both because of academic performance that our schools are not hitting, as far as they're not hitting the target, and then all the stuff that their kids are being exposed to that they just find reprehensible. So now we have the opportunity for parents who want to pursue private education or homeschool education. They'll be able to participate. So that's a huge win. Now, as is the case with every piece of legislation of significance, there comes the horse trading, right? I mean, you've got to give the other side a little bit of a win in order to get your side a win. But overall, I think that the bill itself is a good thing. There's a net positive in that Senate Bill 727.
Talked with Senator Coleman about this yesterday, and I just kind of asked generally, our neighbors to the north and the south, they went full tilt, universal school choice. Missouri's not quite there yet, so we're making incremental moves. What do you think, in a supermajority Republican legislature, what do you think is the resistance to that?
Well, there are a number of people in both chambers, the House and Senate, who, when they have a bill that comes in front of them that touches on education, they will call their superintendent and ask, "How do you want me to vote on this?" Which is a mistake. I've always told people, and I've got a good working relationship with my superintendents. I don't go looking for a fight. I'm not trying to find a way to irritate them by any means. There are a lot of things we can agree on, but on topics like this, when it comes to education choice and freedom and reforming our current public education system, I don't start with our superintendents. Superintendents, they're hired to administrate. They're bureaucrats, right? I start with parents. They're the ones that I ask, because they are actually the constituents of the district, right? So we just have too many people that will start not with the parents, but they'll start by asking the superintendents, "What do you want me to do?" And they're intimidated. And quite frankly, they're just simply intimidated by the superintendents and the teachers unions. So they don't have the will to work against what the superintendents want.
Do you see that we will get in Missouri to universal school choice? I mean, it seems like we're advancing a little closer. Do you think these are incremental steps to getting there, or do you think there's only so far you can go?
Oh no, brother. I think that the pedal is to the floor on this thing. Incrementalism is frustrating. It is, because you're clawing for every inch on the field. But at the same time, you can't overlook the fact that as conservatives, we're fighting right now to try to gain ground on this front, but the left, they will not stop. I mean, they have written the playbook on incrementalism. I mean, they have eroded our freedoms. They've eroded our way of life in so many different sectors of life. And that's how they do it. It's just incrementalism, right? So we have to fight and push back against that while we're also trying to advance freedom for families. So I this year, for instance, so Senator Koenig and I were co-chairs for the Joint Committee on Education, right? So he and I filed companion bills for ESA expansion, which is the bill that passed. We both filed bills to expand public charter schools statewide. We both filed bills for the education tax credit, which is universal school choice, right? Money following the student. It's like the gold standard. It was similar to what was done in Oklahoma last year, right? So we both filed that bill. We both filed the bill on the Parents' Bill of Rights. I mean, all of these things are important, and we will take every win possible. But guess what? My plan, I am fully intending to be back in the General Assembly next year, not as a House member, but as a Senate member. And guess what I'm going to be filing? I'm going to continue to make the ESAs more accessible to parents, and I'm going to continue to fight for this money following the student with education tax credits, and pare back government encroachment in education as well. I mean, these are things we will continue to do. We owe it to the parents in Missouri to do this and to not stop. So,
you mentioned that you're going to run for Senate, or you are in the middle of running for Senate. Some people would, spend some time in the legislature, in the House, and they'd say, that's enough for me. You would like to advance. You'd like to move into the next chamber. Why have you decided to stick with it and run for Senate?
Sure. Well, if you'd asked me a year and a half ago, I would have said, "Oh, no way, brother. I will do my 4 terms in the House and ride off into the sunset and follow Washington's example, go back to the proverbial farm," right? But a year ago, March, I began to see so much of the problem that we're suffering from right now in the General Assembly is coming out of the Senate. And there is a fight right now that we're in the midst of for really the soul of our nation, the soul of our state, and it really is focused upon how the left is coming after our children, our grandchildren, our families, and I began to see last year in a way that I hadn't seen beforehand. We have too few people in the General Assembly that are willing to fight for those issues where the fight really matters. I think there's this mindset in the General Assembly that in order to govern, I mean, we are the supermajority, right? We are the party in power. We have to govern, right? We have to govern well. And I think that sometimes people think that in order to govern, we can't risk being able to govern by fighting these fights, right? And I just tell people it's both and. It's not either or. We must govern and govern well according to the principles and convictions that Republicans have been known for generation upon generation: limited government, low taxation, constitutional liberties being preserved and protected, family, and all those things, right, that make us who we are. We have to govern according to those convictions and do it well. Because those things do produce good for society, right? But at the same time, we have got to fight against the left. And we can do those simultaneously. And I just saw that there were too many people that were convinced you can't do both. So they would rather just govern and let the left win. And I can't, knowing what I know, it was a matter of stewardship. I couldn't walk away from that fight. And as long as the voters of the 21st District will have me, I will fight for them. And do so with zeal.
You have served not just in the legislature. You have served your country with distinction and uniform. You have served. You still continue to serve in the pulpit. I'm just interested in all of these jobs of service. Which one do you value the most?
Oh, I'm a pastor, man. I've told people, and I often work to remind myself, by God's grace, that whatever I do in any sector of life, it cannot threaten my ability to pastor and pastor faithfully. The reputation, the honor of Christ is first and foremost. And as a pastor, when I stand in the pulpit every Sunday, I mean, that's my full-time responsibility. I mean, I've been a pastor for 25 years. I need to be able to stand there with integrity, and with the ability to say, hey, listen, everything that's going on in my life, just like your life, I mean, it's messy. Sometimes we don't get it right. I mean, I'm a man that absolutely needs the grace of God, right? We all do. But I will continue to do what I can so that whenever I'm 51 right now, when I'm 70 years old, if God, keeps my health intact, I look toward the opportunity of still being able to preach and pastor long after people had forgotten that I ever served in the General Assembly.
You, in terms of being a pastor, what fascinates me is when you go to the legislature, is that you've got to be, that's kind of a lonely position. There are a lot of small business people, maybe attorneys, maybe retirees, and you may be the only pastor in the legislature, or one of a few.
Well, so interestingly enough, in the Capitol, the office suite that I'm in, there are two offices, and myself and Representative Brad Hudson from Stone County. He and I are the only two full-time pastors that are serving in the General Assembly between the House or the Senate. So it's wonderful because there are times you'll walk into our office suite and I'll be talking to someone about a church matter, and he'll be talking to someone about the Lord on the phone back home, and then we'll get off the phones, and then we'll talk about feral hog legislation, right? So I mean, it's just fun. It makes life interesting and exciting. So
the issue of life, I know, is important to you. It's going to be a fascinating thing as it comes to the ballot in Missouri. Likely, it's going to be a kind of constitutional referendum, it sounds like, and we've known how those have seen and shown themselves. We were just talking about this last night at the Liberty Women's Clinic benefit. Every time it's been presented on a ballot, it's not done well, obviously. How important is this issue? Is this a hill, if you want to say politically, to die on? That is the abortion ban in Missouri. We were one of the first right away to jump into the fray on that once Roe versus Wade was overturned.
Yeah, no, this is a fight, and it is a worthy fight, right? One of the things I've been concerned about, even within some of the the fringes of the Republican family right now, they're growing a little uncomfortable. We fought for 50 years to overturn Roe v. Wade and to bring it back to the states, and then we win, and it comes back to the states. Now it's a local issue. Now you have neighbors that are putting signs up in their yards about pro-life or pro-abortion or whatever, right? This is what we asked for. And we have won over the last 30 years in particular on both science and messaging and just the ethical nature of what's going on when you support abortion, right? We've been winning with those messages. We've been winning with the science. Now is not the time to retreat from that, right? We need to continue to lean into that. So I've had, for instance, the Kansas City media, they love to reach out to me because they know I'll answer questions, right? I mean, I don't hide from the media. I'm an open book, man. I will absolutely say, yes, if I'm available, I will take the interview, right? So they'll ask these questions about this abortion IP effort, whatever, to try to, put a right to abortion in the state's constitution. And I'll say, okay, what question do you have? And they'll always start with the rape or incest exclusion, right? And I've told them, and now they don't ask the question anymore. I said, I will answer that question for you when you answer me this question. And they're like, okay, what's that question? I said, when in any other area of jurisprudence do we ever support the idea or concept that we should punish up to and including taking the life of an innocent party for the criminal activity of someone else? And it's just crickets. They don't know how to answer that. That's the crux of the issue, right? The reason that Missouri did not include the rape or incest exclusion in our law is because you have an innocent human life that's not guilty for that crime. So I always tell people, hey, let's lean in heavily. If you have someone who has been convicted of rape or incest, we need to throw the book at them, right? And we also need to do everything we can as families, as communities, churches, even the state, to do everything we can to support those who have been victimized by such violent criminal activity, right? It's reprehensible, right? But you don't kill someone because of someone else's criminal activities. So this is a huge issue. If we don't, as pro-life, conservative Missourians, get out there and fight to preserve what we have currently in law, protecting life, then we will see the rollback of all of our protections for life. And you will also see, interestingly enough, if you look at the language of that ballot initiative, the language they're using is also very similar, and it's by design, to the language right now that's being used by the trans community. So if this passes and it goes into our Constitution, we will have a constitutionally protected right to abortion services, and it's all reproductive health and reproductive, access to reproductive services, whatever. Well, that then means that taxpayer dollars will have to be used to fund it because someone now has a constitutional right to access that. But then also this trans community issue, they're using the same language And it does absolutely open the door to them making a claim that taxpayer resources should be used for gender reassignment and gender affirming care. It's nonsense, right? So we've got to take note of what's going on. This is a fight that we cannot walk away from. If life is sacred, if life is significant, we need to put all of our chips on the table and say, we're not walking away from this. We will win this day.
So, Representative, as we wrap up, I would ask, as you run for Senate now, as you'd like to return to the legislature in a new capacity, what would you leave Missourians with? Maybe accomplishments, maybe things you'd like to achieve? 30,000-foot view of the state of things in Jefferson City.
Yes, absolutely. Well, as I was saying earlier, we have to have Republicans, conservatives, people who actually believe in the values and convictions that have animated our platform for a generation and a half, maybe, since the days of Reagan, right? I mean, we've been animated by these principles and convictions, and we've got to believe in those things. They're worth advancing. They're worth promoting and defending, right? So my goal is to continue to do what I've already been doing, and that is not shy away from enthusiastically and happily supporting those efforts, keeping our taxes low, making sure that we're working toward meaningful deregulation. I mean, the bureaucratic state is out of control at the federal level and even, quite frankly, at the state level. And it takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of effort to kind of rein that back in, but we've got to get that done. We've got to continue to lean into that space of preserving our constitutional liberties. Listen, the left is doing everything they can right now to redefine our constitutional liberties, to erode that away, right? So we've got to continue, I promise, and I'm committed to continuing to work in that space, fighting against the left woke nonsense of DEI and ESG and SEL stuff, right? I mean, those are things that have to be done while we look at infrastructure, while we look at the milquetoast governance issues, broadband access, things of that nature, right? We can do all of that, and I've been delighted to be a part of that process for 6 years, and we'll see what the Lord has in store for the next 8.
Pastor, thanks for your time today.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.